everyone, this is Natalie Flores with RPGSite, and I'm an internet-paced magazine, and I am a special guest on this lovely Final Fantasy Retrospective. This is episode 10, and so we are covering Final Fantasy X today. I'm joined by the lovely SGDC cast.
Are we lovely? Are we lovely?
I'm lovely.
Well,
you're not.
lovely. I'm not lovely at all.
Become more lovely with Red.
To differing degrees.
We're a colorful cast.
Sweet.
I am the Sid of this podcast. I think
Crusty
it's probably
old.
safe to say, crusty and angry and just bitter and angry.
Can I be a Moogle?
You can. That's actually a perfect role for you. Would be a Moogle. I hear I'm like, now whenever I see you, I'm gonna hear that Moogle theme song from 6 in my head.
In the spirit of Final Fantasy X, I think John's more of an Auron.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah.
Even though you're now older than Aaron, you said. How old is Aaron?
Aaron is 35.
That's bull. That man is coded like 50-something years old.
Look him up. He's 35.
That's reverse. He's 53.
That's JRPGs. Like, you're a grizzled veteran if you're 25.
Yeah.
And if you're 16, you're ready to go.
John's more of a Strago.
Fuck you, man. Damn.
Final Fantasy X.
Final Fantasy X. So Natalie, this is actually is this your favorite? Is this the top of your list?
Yes, I don't think it's the best one, but with Final Fantasy, like they're all so different, and so many of them are so wonderful that I have two lists for Final Fantasy. It's the list of the best ones and also the list of my favorite ones, and
Totally fair.
sometimes those are different, and so I don't think 10 is the best one. I think it's really good. I don't think it's the best one. That's 6 and 9, but it is my favorite one.
What is it about 10 that makes it your favorite?
I think it just clicked in this magical way for me. You know, sometimes you play games and from the first moment it just clicks with you. I loved Yuna. I think Yuna and Titus are a beautiful love story. I love Titus. I know it's Titus, but we're gonna ignore that.
No, it's Titus. It's
Excuse
Titus.
me? It is what?
It's actually
Titus.
It's
Yeah.
Titus.
No, it fucking isn't.
It
Yeah,
is.
no,
Yes.
yeah, I agree with
No
you.
one
I agree.
has ever pronounced anything like that. In the
I say
No.
Titus.
You're not
Everybody
wrong.
says Titus.
No,
You know, yeah.
we're gonna make it Titus. We're gonna go
Yeah.
Square Enix. I think he's a fantastic character. He's my favorite protagonist, and I don't think people give him a lot of credit for reasons that have to do with toxic masculinity. And I adore the music. Xanarkand, like I was crying throughout the entire First Distant World concert that I went to, but when Xanarkand hit, I heard there was this woman behind me, and I think she was with either her friend or her brother or her husband or boyfriend, and like I was sobbing, and I heard her tell him, "Oh my god, that girl in front of us, she's been crying all night," and I was like, "Yeah, and it was so dramatic. But yeah, I love it. I love the themes that it explores. I love its entire cast. I love the music. I love every location. I think it's a wonderful game, and it really clicks for me. And I cried for the entire day after I finished it.
I definitely think that Titus and Luna Yuna. Why do I want to say Luna? I think that Titus and Yuna have probably the strongest romantic arc between two character leads in the entire series. I really bought.
For me, that's 8, but I also agree.
Well, see, I really, and maybe this is because at that point, visuals and games had evolved to the point where, like, you know, as apart from 8, like you can make this stuff really immersive and really believable. And I feel like that helped me buy into the, I feel like they earned their romance. I feel like, you know, the love that they had for each other was completely earned throughout the game. You know, and I agree with you on To Xanarkand is probably my favorite track in the entire game because it's near the end of the game and you're making your way, you know, through Xanarkand, and there's a sense of finality to that theme, and a sense that everything is coming together and everything's coming to an end. There's an urgency to that theme, and I really love it as well. I also think that 10 has one of the strongest battle systems in the entire series. It's the what was the what do they call it? It's not
Sphere?
It's
not the
we're
actual
talking about
time battle
combat. It's just a turn-based like menu, but it's very pure in that it is very like just here it is. You got all the time in the world. Make your decision. Okay, it's the next person's turn. It's a very traditional.
Swapping people is really nice.
Yeah.
Yes.
Until it isn't.
Access to your entire
Yeah.
party. at any time.
I will also say that as a result of this, I think Final Fantasy X has some of the best actual boss fights in the series,
I would agree with
because
that.
so many of the bosses in Final Fantasy. So Final Fantasy has this thing where there's like the best fights in any game are the ones where it's not just deal more damage than it does and out heal its damage output until you win. However, you can force damage out. The best fights always feel like the ones where there's some kind of gimmick or mechanic you have to work around, whether the boss has phases or it's immune to certain types of tactics or it does unique things. And 10 is chock full of battles with unique mechanics, unique environmental stuff you have to take into account.
Like a chocobo eater trying to push you off the cliff.
Yeah, exactly. And that is like, I don't think any Final Fantasy game before or after 10 has had so much variety in its boss fights. And I really appreciate that.
So there are many things, and I'll just say this real quick. There are some things about 10 that I don't care for. I don't like the character design in 10.
You don't like
belts.
belts?
That is just that is
You're right.
This is why we're friends!
I know.
Lulu's character design,
Like she's so hot, but
Belts!
it is the most Nomura thing you've like.
Yeah.
It's like Nomura channeled all. It's like Nomura went Super Saiyan at his art table and channeled all his belt drawing power into Lulu's dress.
If they just busied down a lot of the designs, they'd be
Yeah.
like. And look, I'm gonna say Titus, but I'm not saying it shouldn't be Titus. It's just that I'm used to saying it the way that it's been put into my head through Dissidious. So please don't do what we did in Final Fantasy IV, where I said Kain and y'all yelled at me every time.
Oh
I
my
know
God.
it should. I know it should be Kain. I say it the way. So Titus's design could really go for some simplification in terms of his outfit. Lulu's design would be ace if it was just like a dress instead of belts. I think Riku's design is a little overly complicated, a little overly messy, and beady in too many individual pieces. But I mean, overall, like, Yuna, Kimari,
Kimari was
Aren,
dope.
yeah, have
Kimari's
really
character design
great
was
character
dope.
designs. Titus is, I mean, like the yellow and black color scheme is really unique, and you don't see on a lot of protagonists. Period. I liked Riku's general outfit concept. And again, Lulu is so close to being
Also,
like an
though,
ace
Derek-
design.
Derek, I hated the character names of some of these characters, like Waka
Oh,
and
okay.
Yeah, but
and
he's kind of
Lulu
like a
and
Polynesian.
Seymour. Like, I'm sorry.
Seymour's done.
I'm sorry. Can we talk about Seymour for a minute?
Well,
Can we please talk about
only-
Seymour for a minute?
Can Finn and I both talked a little bit, like introducing
go ahead,
our
go ahead.
feelings a
Yeah.
little bit?
Yeah.
Finn, have you talked?
No,
Go,
Go.
Finn. I'll go after you.
no, Reb, you please go first.
Please, no.
Okay, then Finn. So I've said on the other two podcasts, Final Fantasy VI is the only Final Fantasy game I've beaten, and it's through a combination of really bad luck on my part. I think I didn't like Final Fantasy VII, so I didn't finish that. I played whichever Final Fantasy it is with Cecil in it on the Game Boy Advance when that version came out. But there was a bug in that version of the game that halfway through the game just completely I couldn't progress whatsoever in any way. I was like stuck in a cutscene and I could never get out, and so I had to just didn't go on. And then Final Fantasy X, I am so close to beating this game. I have the disc, I have a save file at the very end of Mount Gagazet, but
You are close to the end.
as much as I love this game, like it is really good. Like I really enjoy it. The battle system kind of, I was dumb about it. And so it's the part where you split up your party. And I split my party up, and I've saved after the split, so I can't go back and redo it. But I have Titus, Waka, and Riku. And there are these water enemies. And they are immune to everything that Waka and Riku do. So Titus would be, my choice to do damage to them. But for some unholy reason, the only thing I have equipped to him is a water sword that heals them.
Oh, that's
I am completely incapable of progressing, and I don't know how to, I need to go back and, try to puzzle it out, but I think I am legitimately unable to proceed to finish this game. And I really want to restart it because I think it is really, really nice. I love a lot of the themes, especially with Yuna. This is another game like Final Fantasy VI that I played at a time of my life where it really resonated. I played Final Fantasy X at a time when I was starting to kind of see the cracks in the faith that I had practiced my entire life. And so Yuna's kind of seeing the places where this belief that she's had her whole life about what is right and how the world works is actually like kind of breaking down, and then Titus and the others also seeing that too. Like that really resonated with me. I think the music is beautiful. I'm with Natalie. I think the love story is really beautiful, and it's really a fantastic game. It just I fucked up and now I can't beat it.
That stinks.
I know.
Oh, that's
I might go back and like see if there's a way I can just kind of bulldoze my way through like one of their attacks and like try to beat it after this, because
Nobody's perfect.
it's
Brett.
nice.
He has to have one flaw.
You're reminding me that I really did like this game.
Finn, what about you?
I really enjoyed 10 when it came out. I will get into there's one aspect of the game I really don't care for, but I don't want to drag onto the whatever. I'll just say it. It's the sphere grid. It's the ultimate epitomization of what I did not like about the
It's the homogenization of
system. But Final Fantasy X trumps 7 in the sense that the characters are still differentiated in the fact that every character's weapon style is effective against an enemy type. So it still encourages you to use everybody, where it's like Waka needs to hit the flying enemies with his ball, and Titus can attack the quick, nimble enemies. So I really enjoyed that. But sphere grid aside, I thought this was just a remarkably made game. I mean, it used the PS2. Again, it's so easy to forget how impactful these were at the time of their release. Final Fantasy X had nothing came close at that time. It was breathtaking, and there was so much to do. And even though the game is a little more linear than previous Final Fantasies that we're used to, you're so wrapped up in the story. And I will say that I know I'm in the minority, but Blitzball is a delight.
Oh no.
I was just about to say the one flaw.
And like I said, I am in the minority on this, but once you get a good goalie, oh man,
Oh no,
fun.
dude.
I thought people loved
Blitzball's
Blitzball.
No.
No.
Like, no? It seems like everyone always talks about Blitzball.
No.
Like, I don't.
Yeah.
No, Blitzball is a plague on an already cursed earth.
Anything in that era that involved moving in a three-dimensional
Yes.
space,
That's pretty bad.
just no thank you.
Yes. Okay, so can I say, and then I want to kick it back to Natalie. One of my favorite things about the game was actually the setting, because up until that point, like, you know, like not just Final Fantasy, well, like we'll keep it specific to Final Fantasy. Like, you know, we've been through several different aesthetics. You know, like, you know, from medieval to you know, basically steampunk. You know, the Industrial Revolution type stuff that you saw in Final Fantasy VI, and then cyberpunk stuff, and then a more realistic tone in 8. And then back to medieval times in 9, but this one was kind of a Pacific Asian setting, which I thought which is something we'd never really seen before. And I thought that lent it, and you didn't just see that in the surrounding in the land, but in the monsters as well. And I found that to be incredibly colorful and eye catching. That actually, Natalie, ended up being one of my favorite things about the game itself, was the actual setting.
I agree. It wasn't something that we saw at the time much. And going back to what was said about how beautiful it was, even today, the sending scene at the beginning of the game.
Oh man, with the fireflies.
Yes, it is still
Really beautiful.
visually beautiful. Yeah, it's a beautiful game, not just visually, but in terms of its characters and their character arcs. I think the character arcs are really moving. The reason why Titus is my favorite Final Fantasy protagonist is because I feel like he's misunderstood as this whiny character, but it's easy to forget that he did suffer emotional abuse from Jet.
Yep.
And a lot of the complaints about his character, most of which are that he's whiny or he's annoying, that he complains too much, that's rooted in this idea of toxic masculinity, that men can't complain or they can't cry. And I think Titus really, his character is so important in the sense that he's allowed to cry, he's allowed to complain, and he's allowed to say, like, I hate my father. He's just a wonderful protagonist that I really love, and I think he's a really important character. And yeah,
Well, I would
there's
say
so
that
much to love.
for the majority of the game, Natalie, like Jack represents that kind of like that toxic masculinity you're talking about. You know, like man
Yes.
up, stop crying. You
Yes,
know, like be a
exactly.
Yeah.
man. You know, like why don't
Yeah.
you man up, bro?
I thought that was supposed to be
Like-
really clear, and that flew right over a lot of people's heads somehow.
Yeah.
Like,
Which, I mean, goes to show how rooted in toxic masculinity our society can be, and it's
Yeah.
pretty upsetting to realize. Like he's emotionally abused on screen, and his mother does nothing as well. She
Yeah.
just watches as it
between Jack being like the very obvious like toxic masculine enforcing father figure, and then like Seymour is just the other side. He's the
God,
polite
Seymour.
side of toxic masculinity, right?
Oh,
But
yeah.
I thought
Seymour-
between those two, it could not be more goddamn clear that they were beating you over the head. Like, stop doing this. And like,
Seymour is one of the worst characters in the entire
Seymour
Final
and
Fantasy
the
franchise.
sentient hairpiece that is possessing
He
him.
is, his design stinks. His name is just
Oh,
Seymour.
But-
Go ahead.
I
Principal Skinner over here.
disagree.
Oh no, I
He-
can't stand Seymour.
But the reason, I mean, his design is weird as hell. But the reason why I disagree is because as a woman, he's so fucking creepy.
Yeah, you're
like,
intended to
the
hate
way,
him. Like,
the way
Yeah.
he talks to Yuna and the way he talks
Come
that
with
it's like
me,
what Derek was
Yuna.
saying. That nice guy. Oh, I'm doing this for the good of the world. You know, I'm doing this for your
doing
good.
this for
you know, whatever.
you.
Oh my god, he's terrifying.
I
Like,
actually like Seymour. I'm with Reb, and that might
Yeah.
have to do with the fact that we're women. I guess we might
Yeah.
have experienced him a little
Yeah.
different. That's
Mm.
interesting.
Yeah.
Well, so like, I guess the reason I don't like him as a character is because at this point we've had multiple villains who's you know throughout the series whose motivation has been I'm going to save the world by killing everybody, you know, and it's like I didn't find anything unique about his motivation, you know, like I felt like Jecht was a stronger villain for me simply because I grew up with a dad
well, I was
who
gonna say,
very
look,
much
it,
like
it
him.
more emotionally goes through what you went through.
So,
you know,
so it's interesting because I mean, really, the game has two villains. Like you've got Jecht, who is kind of the, like the passive villain, and then Seymour, who is like the in your face. You know, he's the main antagonist. Throughout the entire game, and it's interesting how. And again, like this harkens back to what I said a couple episodes ago when I said, it's not so much the things that that we enjoy so much as that time that they happen, the circumstances surrounding them, and maybe that's why Seymour doesn't resonate as a villain with me because being women, Natalie, you and Rebecca have had maybe experiences with men like Seymour that I have not had. Where on the flip side, Jecht reminds me a lot of the kind of like the dynamic that my father and I had growing up. Which I thought
Yeah.
which I feel is really interesting.
Yeah, that really is.
Although
and I think go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say I will say that Seymour had some of the best boss fights in the entire game though.
Yes, he
Yeah.
did.
Yes.
I also think too that like especially the wedding scene with Yuna too. I mean that's an extremely extreme example, but just the whole dynamic of her making choices that are against her own good and God, that whole thing was so it was awful, but it was awful in the sense that it was just it really portrayed like the look on her face like right
Yeah.
before they kissed, just oh my God, like it was really well put together.
I mean, it was just Seymour forcing himself on her. That's what he
Oh
was doing.
God, yeah. I mean,
but again,
it's
if you
just
do
like,
it politely,
yeah.
then it's fine.
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
yeah. But that
That's-
was the point, right? Like he
He was a
didn't
nice
like
guy.
abduct her. She chose to go with him, but it was her choice, but it wasn't her choice.
it wasn't
was
her
that-
choice. There was a power imbalance there, and she was
Yes.
being manipulated. And that's just
Yes.
because you're not holding someone down doesn't mean you're not being forceful. It's
Yeah.
Well, it was an example of male entitlement. Like Seymour
Yeah.
was like, I deserve to marry you. Like
There's a certain degree of that,
I've
yeah.
earned
Such
you.
a nice guy
Like
for
I
you,
I have the
Yeah.
right to marry you, and so you're gonna come with me and you're gonna marry me. Can we all agree, by the way, that Braska's final Aeon is the final boss and not you, Yevon?
I don't know. I don't know. Can we? Don't tell me what the final boss is. No,
best answer
carry on.
so far.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah, sorry, you haven't gotten
I'm
it yet.
stuck in Gagazet with a fucking water sword.
So basically, without spoiling.
No,
anything
you can
further-
spoil it. I know how it ends.
There's
so-
a final boss, and then there's like a simple, easy,
I s-
gimmicky final phase. Like it's you know.
Being that this is Natalie's favorite game of the series, I would be very curious, Natalie, to get your opinion on what you felt was the actual final battle in the game.
The jet. battle. And
The Ject fight.
yeah, I remember because my memory is a bit awful. But Yu Yevon is the very, very final one, is
Yeah,
it?
he's the one where he possesses all your aeons, and you got to destroy them one by one, which was kind
Yeah,
of heartbreaking.
yeah, that moment was really heartbreaking. And then but it's like a little tiny thing, right? Like
He's like a little bug. He's like just a
yeah.
little
Yeah.
glowy bug.
Yeah, I don't.
It's so
I
weird.
think the aspect of it that resonated with me was seeing the Aeons just disappear and whatnot. But yeah, when I think of the final battle, I actually just think of Jet. Like I think that the scene before it is so poignant.
Well,
Yeah.
and so like what kind of stuck with me about the fight with Jacked was the fact that and this is not something that the series has revisited since, and I wish they would, but you could actually so like throughout the fight he's charging up for his big attack,
Mhm.
and a couple times during the fight you have the option to talk him down
Yeah,
as
that's an
Titus.
actual mechanic. Yeah,
As, and like it'll say like your voice reached through to your father and he's restraining himself, which is really really poignant because before the fight Jack specified he's like, once this starts, like I'm not gonna be able to hold myself back, I can't control myself anymore. But it gives you that sense that it really gives you that sense that Jack is still inside of there trying to restrain himself. And the fact that Titus could, like, he could get through to his dad in those final moments, really for me, like, I was never able to really get through to my dad. And so that's something that really kind of like, it's weird, the things that resonate with us, right? Like those little
right.
things
Yeah.
that get blown up because of our life experiences. So that for me really stuck out. It really
Yeah,
stuck
and it
out to
goes to show like I'm not a victim of abuse, emotional or physical, but something that I know that a lot of victims of emotional and physical abuse is that they still try to get through the other person. They still want to hope that there is something in there that will help them change. And maybe if they talk to them enough, or maybe if they discuss things enough, maybe if they reach out to them enough, they'll be able to change the way that their abuser treats them. And I think that mechanic also really goes to show that Titus, even until the end, he really had hope that he could get through Jet.
So I think in my I would still place Final Fantasy X probably in the bottom of my top five. I still think it holds up. I've got issues with the game, but I think Final Fantasy X is one of those games in the series that easily manages to be more than the sum of its parts. Um, and I'm curious as to where Derek and Finn would put it, because Natalie, I know it's your favorite, and Rebecca, you haven't finished it yet.
It's my second favorite.
Well, yeah, I guess by default.
For whatever that's worth. I genuinely like it.
I'm curious to know where Derek and Finn would put it.
Finn?
Mid tier, upper
Mid-tier?
towards the upper part of the middle of the pack for me. Yeah, like for me, 6, 4, and 9 immediately jump to mind as better. But I enjoyed 10 a lot for with the time I spent for it, but I don't feel the drive to go back and replay them like I do the others of my favorites.
That's totally fair. And Derek,
Yeah.
what about you?
For me, I think so. It's. I don't know that it's in my top 5, but it's getting pretty close. It's definitely in the upper half. Maybe it's like right at that like 70-75% of the way up there kind of mark. I don't know. It's funny because actually I remember really disliking Final Fantasy X at first when I was younger and around when it came out. And as time has gone on and I've gone back and revisited it is really when I grasped a lot more of what it was doing, and I liked more of what it was doing. Man, I was really turned off by some really stupid character designs when I was younger. I mean, Seymour in particular, I was like, I don't know, he's stupid. He shouldn't even be in his game. He's got stupid hair. He does have stupid hair,
does have stupid
but like
He does.
he is among the worst. He is like, once again, just about everything I hate about Nomura designs. I'm more bothered by Nomura hair than I am by belts. But like, yeah, as I've gone back, like I think I appreciate it has, like I said, some of the best boss battles in the franchise. It has a really solid and likable cast of characters. It's doing some really important and interesting like theming and messaging in its story and character arcs. it might be my number 5, but it's right in there.
I've got one more question for Natalie before we wrap up the Final Fantasy X discussion. Natalie, would you agree with me that the grind to get your ultimate weapons in this game is like, I was talking specifically about Titus's sword, where you have to avoid the balloons on the chocobo?
I mean, they're so bad that I didn't bother
Yeah.
to do most of them. Like I
Yeah.
did, the one that I did was the one where you have to go to the thunder plane.
Oh, you did that? Oh.
I did
Oh
that.
no, look, there's nothing worse than the feeling of getting 99 lightning skips and then getting hit right before the final one.
Yeah.
Oh, for me, like, I have never been as angry at a video game ever in my life as I was. So many times I would almost get to the end of that chocobo race through the Calm Lands, and then you get hit by a bird right at the very end. And, like, I literally put my PlayStation 2 controller halfway through the wall at one point because I tried for days to get that way, and I finally got it, and I was like, not worth it. This was not worth
it. No.
the pain and agony that I just went through. And so yeah, like, Natalie, as much as you love the game, I was curious as to your opinion on actually, because, like, getting the celestial weapons in that game, I think, which is what I think they were called, was horrendous.
Yeah, I'm not a completionist person. I'll be perfectly honest. I'm fine with just finishing games and getting what I want out of them and not really bothering to check what trophies can I get so I can get the platinum trophy. So I looked up a walkthrough or like a guide on how to get the celestial weapons, and I remember just tuning out and being like, I'm going to get one, the least worst one. And for me, they're all so bad that the Thunder Plains one was the least bad.
Oh, like, and for anybody who hasn't done the Thunder Plains, like, just like Finn said, dodging 99 lightning bolt strikes and then getting
199. My bad.
199. Sorry,
200 times.
Yeah, 200 times you have to dodge that stupid lightning, and I made it. I never got higher than 10, and I was like, yeah, fuck this.
That's
done.
sadism.
Like, I don't care about a cactar
I
doll
think I
that much.
remember failing around the 150 something mark. Yeah.
Whoever decided on that should never be allowed around a video game again. They shouldn't be allowed to play them.
And there's
That's
no way to
bad.
cheese that either, Natalie, right? Like, there's no way to cheese the lightning planes.
No, not at all.
No.
I do want to leave on one slightly spicy take.
Ooh.
It is that Final Fantasy 13 gets bashed for being very linear, but Final Fantasy 10 is just as much, or if not more, linear than it, and it doesn't get bashed for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I've been
10
saying
was the
this for
most linear
years.
I think it's ever been, because at least 13 had moments where you could explore an overworld.
I'm gonna choose to be consistent. It's actually one of the few things I dislike about 10 as well. But
so here's Natalie is 100% right. Final Fantasy 13
it is
got
a
bashed
double
for
standard.
all the things that, like, and I'm like, I was reading the reviews for 13. I remember this. I was in Afghanistan when it came out, and I was like, and they're like, oh, it's linear, and I'm like, every Final Fantasy is linear.
Yeah, like which Final Fantasy hasn't been linear? Like,
every single one of them is linear. Like 10 and 13 just did away with the pretense.
6 has a fucking point of absolute no return for the whole first half of the game.
Like, just because you have an open world doesn't mean that it's not linear. Like,
people just want to feel like they're not just walking down hallways, which, I mean, I get, but it's not the deal breaker that people made out. 13 has bigger problems than hallways, guys. Like, it's stop memeing.
13 is in my top 5.
And once again, it's Cinema Sins.
And I are gonna have fun for that one.
It's Cinema Sins tier criticism. Like, come up with more meaningful problems. Or don't talk, because hallways is not.
There's the laughing scene that Final Fantasy X is cheesy and dumb.
You know what? I love the laughing scene. Fuck the haters.
I love when people bring up the laughing scene.
People who think it's like genuinely like that was just like bad voice acting or whatnot. Like, thank you for missing the entire point of the scene.
It's also exactly the same way in the Japanese version of it, so it's clearly an intentional.
It was supposed to be
choice.
awkward and sweet, and and
a little heartbreaking too. Like,
it's really real.
Good.
And by the way, like, I know I've said like 3 times, so let's end on this, but I just want to say that, like, one of the most heartbreaking scenes in the entire series was, all I'll say. So Rebecca hasn't gotten there, so all I'll say is the whistle.
Yes.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all I'll say. That's.
I actually don't know what you're talking about.
So I'm gonna end on that.
Yeah,
like,
I know how the game ends. But
You'll get there.
You'll get there. You'll
Yeah,
know
yeah,
what I mean.
I will say, after talking about, I wasn't expecting to be on this podcast, but after talking about it, I'm kind of tempted. I mean, it's seriously been like this was the first Final Fantasy game I ever played. Well, no, it was the second after 4. But I'm tempted to go dig out my PS2.
You should go.
Bust it out. I want to see where my save file is, but if it's not in a good place, if I really can't get past it, I might just pick it up and start it over again.
Well, don't forget, it's coming out.
The
on Switch
remasters,
The
too.
I was gonna say,
remaster's on PS4
on
too.
Yeah.
and it's on sale on Steam right now.
And it
so
looks really
Yeah.
good, actually. Like the
that's a
remaster looks
great
really good.
remaster. Yeah.
Okay, I might go pick it up again.
Yes.
All right. Well, I think that's a great note to wrap up our Final Fantasy X discussion on. Natalie, thank you again so much for joining us.
Thank you
Yes.
for having me.
Always a delight.
And you can catch it. Yes, we are going to talk about Final Fantasy XI. I know that it's an MMO, but it's a numbered entry in the series, and we are going to talk about it because I
We'll
have
find
played
a
it.
way.
It's
Oh,
one
really?
of the only.
Alright.
It's one of the only MMOs I've played. The other one being Final Fantasy XIV. So we're going to talk about that one too. But as always, guys, thank you for joining us, and we will see you later.